Hello everybody, welcome to the NCGA FMC Ag Weather Outlook for March 28th, 2015. Well, I wanted to start off by showing how much precipitation fell over the last 7 days. You can see for the most part it's been fairly unorganized. It's sort of a mishmash of different types of light to moderate precipitation. You know, in spring, early spring, when I see a track like this, and definitely in winter, I start to think snow. But look at that, a little bit of areas of yellow here. That's 2.0 inches of liquid equivalent, and keep an eye on that for reference, 'cause I'll be talking about that in just a minute. But that's one of the few areas that had above normal precipitation, as indicated in the blue. Everywhere else, like I said, it wasn't a real well-organized pattern over the last week. We really see from the big perspective here areas of red and areas of blue. But the bigger picture still is dryness so far. This is the last 30 days, and we do see fairly widespread areas in yellow, a couple inches below normal over the last 30-day period. I think that's actually going to go up a little bit more with the next couple weeks, with most likely below normal precipitation. As I mentioned the last couple briefings, you can see that action area here, but it really just sort of brushes the eastern ag belt. For the most part, we're looking at dry conditions. So we need some additional precipitation over the area. And we see that in soil moisture as well, especially over the upper Midwest. Now remember that area, parts of this area have been fairly warm as well. And that trend looks like it's going to continue. So the soil moisture anomalies are going to most likely increase in that region. Only a very small area of Indiana and Ohio are experiencing a little bit above normal soil moisture. Not a lot, most of it's near normal, but really we're looking at this area here of pretty dry soils for this time of year. Now remember that area I told you to look at? Well, look at that. That was snow, and in a very narrow band, very heavy snow. I see some of these blue dots, 8 to 10 inches, and even a couple that are above 10 inches. Maybe even the possibility of even one spot even close to 12 inches in just a very small area. So a very narrow streak of moderate to even heavy snow in that area. And you can see it from water equivalent here, sort of outlined there. The area shaded a purple, that's 0.5 to 1 inch, so a half inch to 1 inch. That will melt, and that will provide some replenishment of upper soils in that area. So I'm sure it's not enjoyable this time of year to get that heavy snow in that region, but on the other hand, once it melts, I think that will be some needed precipitation for those areas. And that won't last long. It will melt very quickly, even with below normal temperatures this time of year. Other than that, that's pretty much it. So I keep on saying we're going to be finished with snow, and we keep on getting these small bands, but it will be quieting down. Now, as far as temperature departure goes, I've been mentioning that we're getting back into that positive P&A. I discussed that last week at length, and you can see here's that pattern again, but it's not nearly as extreme as we've seen, and I've said that as well, and I think that's going to be the case. We're going to see signs of this positive P&A pattern, but it's not going to be as extreme. And remember, what that means is the vulnerability for some cool air or cold air to dip over the Great Lakes, Minnesota, and then parts of the eastern Corn Belt, and milder weather over the upper Midwest and sort of in the middle near normal. Now, this is an image throughout the year. If you're a regular listener to the Ag Weather Outlook, you know I introduce different graphics, different times in the year. Summertime, I don't talk about the teleconnections, the Arctic Oscillation, and the P&A quite as much. And I look at other things. So let's introduce the departure from average greenness, and this gives us some idea, depending on the time of year, of the relative greenness of the as measured by satellite, and that can give us some idea of vegetation and the overall health, or planting rates, or growth rates. This is really early, so I don't think we can read too much into it, but I thought it was sort of interesting here, taking a look at parts of the Mississippi River Valley where we start fairly early in planting, and it does look like it's this red here, and that's indicating below what would normally be green in that area. So there could be some delays in that area. Further north, it's too early to get a whole lot out of that, and basically I wanted to introduce this to you, but I will be showing this from time to time. So overall, areas in yellow and red indicate lagging conditions, and areas in green indicate conditions that are in good shape or running ahead of what would be normal. Now, when we look at the jet stream for the next couple weeks, we start out with this positive Pacific North America pattern. That pattern is going to bring cooler than normal temperatures in the east, and then jet stream bulging to the north and the west. So parts of North Dakota, especially central on to the west, in this region above normal temperatures, and somewhat right in the middle here near normal. But then as we get into the latter part of the week, we see everything begin to moderate. And I think that's sort of the key word in this briefing, moderation. I don't see as much extremes. And I see variability. I see periods of 2 to 3 days of below normal, 2 to 3 days above normal, but I don't see the strong variability. I think once we push this cold air out this week, we're going to get a more cooler than normal air, but I think it's going to be a little bit more moderate. I don't see strong swings one way or the other, with the exception of the upper Midwest, which could remain with a tendency of well above normal temperatures, especially over the Northwest Corn Belt. Now, the Pacific North America pattern, it reflects that. We've been in this positive range as we start out the forecast, and then it gets back into actually slightly negative, but pretty much is as close to neutral. And that's that key towards the moderation of this pattern that we've been seeing. Now, temperatures this week, starting off with that pattern I just mentioned, but this is the area here. This is why I do think we're going to continue to dry soils in this area right here, because not only is precipitation expected to be below normal, but temperatures look like they're going to be above normal for prolonged periods. Then as we get from early April, first part of April, it does look like pretty much a near normal type pattern as we get into early April. Now, look at all that blue up there. I still think there's some vulnerability towards that cooler air pushing down as we get into spring. That's an overall seasonal concern of mine because of the ocean temperatures that I've talked about extensively. But at least right now, as we get into early April, I think we're going to get into more of a normal pattern, which we haven't really seen for quite some time. Now, precipitation, I think, is going to be very similar to last week. I think it's going to sort of be not a real organized type system or pattern. We are going to have a number of weak fronts pass through. I don't see much chance of severe weather. It's been very quiet as far as severe weather goes. There could be some streaks of snow here and there. One is forecast through Michigan, but everything else, these are just these light bands of maybe some snow flurries, and I wouldn't really get too concerned with any snow. Anything this week looks like it'd be very light. Now, as far as the anomalies of precipitation, this is one of the real key things I know people like to look at. Week 1, lots of yellow, and that's what it looks like, a fairly quiet week. There will be some precipitation, but fairly quiet. And week 2, near normal, and I think that goes along with what I just described. Now, in this region here, this is the area that's still somewhat vulnerable. This is an area I've been watching south of the Corn Belt, but this is one area that could be fairly wet in this area here. But up in our area, looks fairly quiet in week 2. I'll also introduce, as we start to move into the middle of spring, soil moisture or soil temperature forecasts. And right now I'm sort of tracking that 50 to 55 degree area in green. Let's keep an eye on that. You can see it sort of extends from St. Joe towards Quincy and then down the Mississippi River down towards Evansville. Let's take a look at that next week and see how that progresses. But this is the forecast this week. By the end of this week, April 2nd, you can see where the 50 to 55 degree temperatures go. And let's keep an eye on that. Let's keep an eye on that area in yellow, that's 60 to 65, and see how that progresses as well. So here are your takeaway points from today's briefing. Expect alternating temperature swings, 2 to 3 days one way, 2 to 3 days the other way. But I think with a moderating PNA, it looks like these overall departures are going to be more moderate. And overall, I expect a quiet to below normal precipitation pattern for the next couple weeks, especially this week. Nothing all that unusual one way or the other. So, you know, a lot of times meteorologists, we like to always talk about the really unusual weather, and you'd almost think there's never any normal weather. Well, I certainly look at it that way. It seems like there's always something. But overall, I think we're in a broad, fairly normal pattern once we get this cold air pushing out early this week. So the next couple weeks, I don't see anything real extreme one way or the other. So have a great week. Pass this information along if you know others that would like to get that. I think all my emails that go out have a subscription link where you can sign up. It's free, sponsored by FMC. Again, have a great week. Talk to you later.